What up, everybody, and welcome to Baz on Blades. My name is Baz, and I talk about blades. Today's feature blade, we've got a small fixed blade knife from Colt Knives. Now, of course, this is Colt Knives of Colt Firearms Manufacturing, and for those of you that do not know, Colt Knives, the entire line of Colt Knives has been discontinued. That happened last year in 2017, and there's really not a lot of these knives out there to be found. I recently found this little knife through a Facebook page, a knife group that I belong to. A guy had picked one up. It caught my eye, so I went out and searched for it and found them. Fantastic price. And grabbed one real quick because there's only a couple of places that have them, and they've only got a few pieces. So if you're interested in this knife, at the end of the video, I'll give you a couple of sources in the description, and you can go and find these and grab you one real quick before they're gone for good. All right, what we've got here is the Colt CT673 Yoroidoshi. And this is a very loose interpretation of a Yoroidoshi type tanto. And Yoroidoshi means armor piercing. And when I say this is a very loose interpretation, it's a very loose interpretation because those were fairly large tantos, mostly with blades around 19 or 20 centimeters. And this is a small knife. It's 19 centimeters overall. But a Yoroidoshi would have been done in very heavy blade stock, a centimeter to a half an inch, and they were for what they were named after, armor piercing. This one really, to me, is more of a sort of a small Kwaiken type build, and I love small Kwaiken fixed blades. So here we are. We've got this one now, guys. All right, let's set that down. We'll take a real quick look at the packaging. This is the typical Colt packaging, Colt box here. Inside the box was the knife. It had a cardboard blade protector. Then it was down in a plastic baggie. And then, of course, you had the sheath that was down in there with it. All right, so you know what? The box is decent, guys. Now, we're not talking about an expensive knife here. I just paid $13.95 for this knife shipped. And the two sources that I found, they both had it for $13.95. All right, let's go ahead and actually bring that packaging back in here. We'll set this up. You can look at it. We'll knock the specs out real quick. It is a small fixed blade, about 3 3/4 of an inch or 9.5 centimeter blade length. Blade stock thickness is 120 thousandths of an inch or 3 millimeters. Your blade width, about 8/10 of an inch or 20.3 millimeters. The handle length, 3 7/8 of an inch or about 97 millimeters. Handle thickness, 413 thousandths of an inch or 10.5 millimeters. Your handle width is the stock width of the entire knife, so it's the same as the blade, and you're about 8/10 of an inch or 20.3 millimeters. Overall length, 7 5/8 inch or slightly more than 19 centimeters. Behind the edge thickness, average from 3 different spots, is about 25 thousandths of an inch or 0.63 millimeters. The handle to blade ratio on this fixed blade, pretty much 1 to 1. The weight, 3 ounces or 85 grams for just the knife, or 5 ounces or 143 grams for the knife with the sheath. All right, and let's go ahead and talk about that sheath, guys. The sheath is crap. It's pretty junky. It is one of those multi-layer material, sort of foam core. It's Cordura nylon on the outside, and then a firm foam core, and then a smooth nylon on the inside. You can see that it's sort of molded to fit the knife. For what it is, it's well made. I won't give it too much grief over that. but it is not, it does not, it's just not worthy of the little knife. It's got decent fit. And then you've got snap retention here. The snap does have the metal tab reinforcement on it. So retention is not going to be an issue. There is no hard liner in this sheath. It's just that sort of foam core that's been molded to the knife. So you take a chance on this knife stabbing through the sheath. If you took a bad fall, and the knife will probably cut right through the sheath, guys. I'm not going to lie to you about that. If you decide to grab one of these, go ahead and factor in you're going to need to have a sheath made for it, or you're going to have to make a sheath yourself. All right, material wise here. Now, when I worked at Smoky Mountain Knife Works, we sold a lot of Colt knives. And the fixed blades were typically in 440A or 440B. This knife, as it was listed on the internet, every seller had just copied and pasted the same little paragraph description, and it just said stainless steel. So I'm going to assume this is in 440A, 440B. Those are budget steels, stainless steels. Medium high carbon, you're looking at 0.65 to 0.95 carbon content, a fairly high chromium content of 16 to 18%. So your wear resistance or edge retention is going to be decent. It has good toughness with good to excellent corrosion resistance. Now, in these budget knives, typically the trade-off is going to be edge retention. And if I was going to use this knife in a utility purpose, everyday use, I probably would not have purchased the knife because of the blade steel. But the reason that I carry a knife like this is a dedicated reason. I carry a small fixed blade when I carry my firearm, and I've got videos on my channel about that. What I do is I carry a small fixed blade on my weak side in case that I happen to have a situation where I have to retain my firearm. If somebody's trying to grab my firearm, I have to retain it with my strong side hand. In that case, I want a knife I can pull out and stick in somebody, get them off of me so they cannot get my firearm. And I don't want to have to reach across my body with my weak hand, grab a folder out of my front pocket, manipulate that folder, and try to use it while struggling with somebody intent on doing me harm. I want to be able to grab a fixed blade, pull it out, stick it in. Period. And that's the reason I carry these small knives. Now, in that instance, and for that intended use, the blade steel doesn't really matter. As long as it is quality enough to take an edge, period. If you can sharpen it to a good edge and use it in a defensive, offensive role, then it is fine for that. So, take everything that I'm going to say in this review and filter it through that use. Your handle material is G10. It is deeply sculpted, very well done. It is affixed with chain ring bolts, which I love the look of chain ring bolts. I always have. That's one of the things that I liked about Strider folders. DJ Ergonomics of American Cami Knives, the custom maker, uses a lot of chain ring bolts for his handle scales. I love that look. I love using those bolts myself. So hardware-wise, material-wise, it is quality, especially considering you're talking about $13.95 on this knife. So no issues there. Fit and finish. We're going to go back to the blade. The grinds on this blade are well done. There's no real funkiness there. The primary grind is a hollow grind. It is done evenly on each side. The swedge grind is even side to side. You've got some nicely done and effective jimping on the spine of the blade. Very nice, guys. I very much love this jimping. It is flat topped and softened around the edges, but you can see it is deeply cut. You put your thumb there, you put any pressure on it, and the flesh from your thumb feels those cuts, and it really does give you a lot of grip. The blade profile is pretty pointy, so no problem piercing there. It catches instantly with any amount of pressure. The edge grind on this is in line with the price. The knife did come sharp. It will cut paper, but it is not the best slicer. I'm going to plan on resharpening, and I think anybody that buys this knife should also plan on that. But with the lower end stainless blade steel, it should be a piece of cake to resharpen. You do have a slight sharpening choil here that I think will do just fine. You may get into the corner, the forward corner of this plunge on that sharpening choil when sharpening, but again, guys, you're looking at a $13.95 knife. That's not going to matter. But overall, the finish on the blade, this black wash, is attractive. I always have liked black wash finish. I think that it has more character than just a plain coated blade. Because you get to see all the faceting and all the grinds where the edges, are affected by the stone wash after the black finish is done. The Colt logo is well done. On the back side, you only have China on it, so you're not looking at a huge billboard of a knife. It's pretty much understated. Fit and finish on the handle. You know what? I was pleasantly surprised with this. There is absolutely no gapping anywhere between the scales and the tang of the blade. So the G10 scales were finished flat before they were affixed, so no issues there. The hand finishing on the scales themselves, this shaping. Now, I say hand finishing, but it looks like it was sort of milled. You can see some milling marks in it. And while that is not the cleanest look, it actually, to me, it sort of adds a little bit of character to it. And again, at this price point, I don't care about that. All I care about is that it makes the handle really grippy. That's fairly deep scalloping on it. And very well done. So no issues there. You can see that the tang of the blade is proud of the scales. Just enough, guys. We're looking just enough to give it sort of a rounded type of feel in the hand. And since it is a fairly thin handle at 13 thousandths of an inch, that does make it feel a little more rounded and less blocky and flat. Pretty comfortable in the hand. The finish on the chainring bolts is just a plain black finish. They are well finished, and then they've got that sort of matching sort of finish to the blade, although they're slightly darker than the blade. But you do have that the black wash sort of look to them also. So fit and finish wise, there's really nothing I can argue about on this knife. There's no issues there. Throw a quick edge on it after you get it, and I think that it will perform admirably. We'll go on to the ergonomics on the knife. As most Japanese-inspired knives, this has a pretty wide open, simple handle design. You do have a moderate choil here, but it is not so pronounced or so deep that it is going to restrict the grip that you have on this knife. You pretty much got a straight, flat handle design. It works great in a forward grip. Rotate it around to a reversed grip. It works fine. Keep into account you've got sort of a striking end on the tip here on the butt end. So if you're going to cap that with your thumb, keep that into account. But it is not ultra sharp. It is chamfered. It's not sharpened like it's going to be a glass breaker, but it is enough to where it could be a less than lethal impact device. If you wanted to use this in a draw grip, you don't have a super pronounced guard here that would get into the webbing of your hand, so it is comfortable for that. In a pinch grip, to actually do some utility type work with it, you can see that the forward edge of the handle scales are scalloped, and they're actually very comfortable for that use. So I really think that the ergonomics of the handle are actually very good, guys. Very simple. This is a simple knife overall. It could be one of the best quote unquote cheap fixed blades I have ever bought. Very much, now of course I'm a big fan of Kwaiken type small fixed blades, so I'm already sort of predisposed to like this, but it to me, the combination of the obviously Japanese inspired profile, but with modern finishes and materials, the black wash finish, which I personally like, the G10 handle scales, which are deeply sculpted to offer great grip. They give a modern look with a modern material. Then you've got the chain ring bolts that are on the handle affixing the scales. That's a very modern and industrial type of look. And then the addition of the impact on the butt end also gives it a modern look. So you've got a traditional profile modernized without being over the top, flamboyant, a caricature of what it could be. It is a very simple, straightforward design. I think that if you take a close look at it, you will see, especially for the intended purpose I picked it up for, which is as a fixed blade backup knife, it would be awesome for that. Fantastic design, and the $13.95 I paid for this, I considered $13.95 of it was for the design. Okay, no fancy materials, no fancy sheath. Throw that sheath away. Have a compact Kydex sheath made for it, and this would be a fantastic little backup carry piece. All right, you know what? Going away from the ergos of the handle, we'll take a quick look at the blade here. Like I said, the blade would be good for utilitarian use, keeping into account the limitations of the cheaper blade steel. It is hollow ground. It is about 25 thousandths behind the edge thickness, but it's a fairly narrow blade and decent blade stock thickness. So unless it had a super high grind, you're going to get a slightly thicker behind the edge thickness. I don't think that this knife is going to be a fantastic slicer. You know, I'm not going to go and start using it in the kitchen to prep out food. I'm sure it will cut cardboard just fine. In fact, I've cut some cardboard with it. It did just fine. Yes, it does drag a little bit more than a true slicey knife, but what do you expect? Seriously though, this is a piercer. It has plenty of belly to slash with. You've got a nice length of flat, straight edge here that you can do utility work with. You can, in a pinch, you can place your thumb here on this flattened area and get up close to the blade, using it almost like a forward choil. It's really, you know, with the great jimping on the back of it, it's such a secure little knife in the hand that it gives you a sense of security and confidence in using the knife in any way, whether it's stabbing or slicing, detail work. It actually is a pretty decent sort of Asian-inspired blade profile. Now, Since I like these knives, I pulled out another one from my collection that I really, really love, and we're going to compare this to give you guys sort of a size reference, because this other knife is probably much more well known, and that is the Columbia River Obake that is designed by Lucas Burnley. And you know what, Lucas Burnley, we just have to thank him for this whole quacking thing, because between his quacking folder with Boker, the new version, the automatic version coming from ProTech and Boker, which I'm super excited about, and then this fixed blade of a basic quacking design from Columbia River, he really has made this design of knife popular. And we're going to set these down here real quick, and they are very much alike as far as the size goes. I'm going to line it up handle to handle, the forward edge of the handle scale, and we'll show you the difference here. The Columbia River is handle oriented, so the handle itself is about 1/8 of an inch longer than the Colt, whereas the Colt is more blade oriented in its balance, so the blade length is about 1/8 of an inch longer, and you can feel that difference in design in the hand. Even though if we line them up tip to tip, they are pretty much exactly the same length. When you pick up the Colt in comparison to the Columbia River, it feels like you have more blade available, even though it's pretty much the same overall length, and that just has to do with the balance, the blade to handle balance on this knife. This one is more of a true 1-to-1 balance, where the Columbia River is balanced a little more towards the handle. That's something else I like about this design. I think, you know, guys, just overall, let's just close this out, because it's just such a simple knife right here. There's not a whole lot to say about it. If you like small, quacking, Japanese sort of inspired fixed blades, you will love this little knife. No, it doesn't have the best blade steel in it, but other than that, there's zero issue with any of the materials on the knife. Yes, the sheath, junk, guys, throw it away. It's there to hold the knife until you get a better sheath for it. And really, a simple Kydex, sort of a taco build sheath for this, you shouldn't have to pay much money for it at all. Put a loop on it, carry an IWB, and this knife would be fantastic, at least for what I'm picking it up for, which is a defensive hideout backup type of knife to carry with my firearm. All right, guys, like I say, there is a dealer on eBay, and that's where I got this one. He has a few of these. I'll try to put a link in the description. There is also one dealer on Amazon that has a few of these, and they each just have a few, guys. They're both $13.95. I will at least put a link for the Amazon list, and if I can't get the eBay link over because I already bought from that link, then you can just go to eBay and do a search on Colt CT673, and it'll come up. $13.95, guys. If you like this type of blade, this type of look, this type of design and profile, I think it's a no-brainer. I very much am liking this little knife. Like I say, no problems with the knife itself. The sheath is throwaway. Keep that in mind. Take it into account cost-wise. And I believe that just about anybody would be happy with this little knife. All right, guys. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch one of my videos. God bless all of you, and we will talk to you again.